Friend of the show, Krystal Ball, was on Bill Maher's real-time show over the weekend, and she absolutely schooled him on a number of topics, including whether Biden is too far left and whether Democrats are to blame for inflation and turmoil going on in the stock market right now. Now, Bill Maher, he's for sure a liberal, but he's no progressive, I think we can say. Like in the 2020 Democratic primaries, when there were all these different candidates to choose from, the person that he settled on was Amy Klobuchar, of all people. So that's the kind of Democrat that he is. And Bill Maher will often criticize the left for being too woke and too extreme and say that the left is too thin-skinned and all these different things. Krystal Ball is a co-host on Breaking Points with Sagar and Jetty, and she also has a podcast with Kyle Kulinski called Krystal Kyle and Friends. She is a true progressive by all accounts. We can definitely say that for sure, and she absolutely took Bill to task when he tried to do the I'm on the left, but I criticize the far left routine. So here are the two debating whether Biden's approval numbers tanked because he went too far to the left.
Here's my question about Joe Biden for you two. Has he pandered to the far left? A, too much. B, too little. Not at all. Because AOC would say not at all.
Well, if you look
Other people would say he panders way too much to the far left.
If you look at the trajectory of his presidency, at the beginning of his presidency, he did some of the things that myself as a person on the left would like him to see. He passes the COVID relief bill, and lo and behold, he had very high approval ratings.
You're not always on the left.
Then, I am on the left. I'm a Bernie
there's
Sanders leftist.
There's the populist economic left, and then there's the woke left. And these are two separate.
In any case, let's talk about what he's actually done. So in the beginning of the administration, he passes that. Very high approval rating, doing extraordinarily well. When he puts out the left agenda in the Build Back Better and then it fails and he stops delivering for the American people, that's when he falls off.
What do you mean by the left agenda in the Build Back Better?
Well, there's universal pre-K.
Put meat on that.
It's not everything that I would want.
Right.
No Medicare for all, there's no Green New Deal. But you had universal pre-K, you had affordable child care, you had elder care, you had an expansion of Medicare. You had things that would have delivered for the American people. That falls apart. Partly because of Manchin, Sinema, Parliamentary, all of that falls apart. And since now the American people are feeling incredible pain with inflation and gas prices and unable to put food on the table and put gas in the car, and he's basically ceded the ground and said, there's not much I can do. I just hope the Fed gets this under control. Yeah, the approval ratings have fallen off a cliff. That has nothing to do with the left. I wish the left had more power. In fact, I think the left is the only part of the political spectrum that has offered anything to deal with inflation, gas prices, and the current economic situation that doesn't just involve, hey, let's trigger a recession and kill people's wages.
This is the correct assessment from Krystal Ball here. Joe Biden was super popular at the beginning of his presidency because he was able to get things done, and he had an approval rating of something like 55 to 60%. As time has gone on, he hasn't been able to get things passed, and so he's starting to look feckless and unable to respond to some of the challenges that we as a country are facing, and so his approval numbers have gone down accordingly. And notice how Bill steps in there and tries to reset by saying, Krystal, you have to slow down, you have to be more clear and concise, as if what she was saying wasn't already super clear and concise. And he does this later on. It's just like a rhetorical crutch that he's using here because he realizes that he's outmatched when it comes to the facts. Next, they're discussing inflation and the reasons for it, and Bill just has a difficult time recounting the historical events of the past couple of years. Let's roll that.
Part of this inflationary problem is because we put too much money into the economy. There's way too much government spending, and that's why we have inflation. So that's a large part of that. It's just basic economics.
And that is not basic economics. We had this thing called a pandemic. We had a supply chain crisis. And by the way, there's a war in Ukraine.
It played a role.
So to act like the only reason we have problems now is because people got a little bit of money in their bank account is just not honest.
And a little bit of money, they got more than we spent in World War II. So don't act like
Hold on. Hold on.
Don't act like, you said don't act. Don't act like we had to react to the pandemic exactly the way we did. We had to spend $6 trillion
but how about the
trillions
that the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street? For some reason, people don't get upset about that.
What'd you say?
Fueled the trillions of dollars the Federal Reserve shot at Wall Street to backstop the stock market and the bond market. No one gets upset about that, even though that was a massive
I don't know what
factor in
you're
inflation.
talking about. What do you mean shot at Wall Street? When are we talking about?
We're talking about buying assets, buying stocks, buying bonds, buying treasury bills so that they expand the balance sheet. This is during the crisis, the coronavirus crisis. When the stock market crashed, that is what the Fed did. They went into action. They shot trillions of dollars.
But the stock market didn't crash during COVID.
Now it's crashing.
It did crash.
crashing now.
It crashed, and the Fed came in and backstopped it. That's what happened.
What, it crashed and we
that's
never
what
heard
I'm
about
saying.
it?
No, it crashed. Go back and look at it.
I think
it fell off a cliff.
When?
The Treasury bond market stopped functioning, and the Fed took extraordinary action it's never taken in history.
I don't
Somehow
remember
no one
that.
gets
Maybe
upset.
the first week of the pandemic.
Somehow nobody gets upset about the rich people who got tons of money and tons of support, way more than working class people did.
Sure
but
they
oh
do.
my God, people were able to feed their kids and they had a little bit of money in their bank accounts. It was the worst thing in the world.
No.
That is one small part of the inflation story, and is, by the way, not the only thing that we can deal with to get out of this mess.
So once again, there's that rhetorical crutch that Bill uses by saying, shot at? I don't understand what you mean, shot at. You have to explain what you mean by this term, as if we don't all understand what Krystal is saying when she says shot at. She means pumped up, infused, added to, but Bill has to get super pedantic and focus on this one term because he's losing the exchange and he recognizes that. And then he doesn't remember somehow how the stock market crashed at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic. It certainly did. The major indices plunged about 30 to 40% at the start of the pandemic before quickly bouncing back because of, yes, the Federal Reserve announcing their commitment to bailing out companies and buying up debts. Now, even though Bill should know about this because he follows news and politics and he does a show about news and politics, and you'd think he would be up on world events, I kind of give him credit in a weird way for not remembering that the stock market crashed at the beginning of the pandemic, because Bill is obviously a very well-off person, and so he most likely has a bunch of money in the stock market, so he must have lost a ton of money at the very beginning of the pandemic before, yes, quickly gaining it all back. So you'd think that, like many other rich people, he would have been freaking out at the very beginning of the pandemic for losing all that money, but apparently it didn't faze him. So to some degree, I think that makes him look good in my opinion. But the broader point is the one that Krystal made, which is that when the government bails out the stock and the bond markets, that's just solid economics, right? You know, that's just what we're supposed to do as a country. But then when money is given to the middle class and the working class in the form of unemployment checks and stimulus checks and child tax credits, that's blamed for tanking the economy, and we sure as hell can never do that again. So excellent job there by Krystal, and I kind of get the sense that maybe she won't be invited back on Bill Maher's show anytime soon because she really made him look bad.
One of the fastest growing crimes in the U.S. is identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. This has happened to me before. I've talked on the show. We got hacked. It was costly. It wasn't a good feeling. And that's why I now protect myself with Aura, one of our sponsors. Protecting your accounts and devices gets complicated because you need a bunch of different tools, and Aura combines them all into one app. Identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, password management, antivirus, all in one place. They monitor email addresses, passwords, social security number, bank accounts, credit cards. If something happens, you get an immediate alert on your phone, and then Aura can help me fix it as well. Aura is letting my audience try it free for 2 weeks at aura.com/Pacman. With the free trial, you can do things like see if your login credentials have been found on the dark web. I saw an old password was in 4 different data breaches. Probably something you want to know, and it's free, so you might as well just use the link down below.